What's going on? If you guys are looking for a Grandmaster Nightfall guide on the Heist Battleground Europa, you've come to the right place. The reward for this week's Nightfall is the Swarm Adept. You can also focus this at Zavala once you have 10 Adept Nightfall ciphers, which drop at the end of each Nightfall. You can only carry 10 of these, so make sure you spend them when you can. To get started, let's talk about the mods that we're going to be facing in this Nightfall. Up at the top of the screen, you'll see a list of these. Some highlights here are the champs. They have Unstoppable and Barrier Champions, as well as we have the Overcharged Linear Fusion Rifles. And finally, here's a list of the artifact mods that I've chosen to run, as well as the armor mods that I have on my gear. It's worth noting that I'd probably swap out a Solar Reserve for something like another Damage Resistance, maybe Void or Arc. I'd also probably swap out Powerful Attraction for something like Time Dilation down in my class mod. Here are also the weapons that I'm running. I'm taking Wish Ender for the Barrier, and it's just a powerful bow that takes down enemies fairly quickly at good range. Also, the Eremite for Unstoppable and Briar's Content for that Linear Fusion Rifle overcharge that we have. Okay, let's get into the Nightfall guide. So we're running two Well Warlocks, both have Phoenix Protocol, so we could chain the Wells back to back when we needed to. We also had a Void Tether Hunter that had invisibility, working pretty good in this Nightfall. I highly recommend having a Hunter with you just because he can smoke bomb everybody here and take everybody to the first room. I'm not going to sit too much on this part here because it's pretty self-explanatory. You just kind of sit back at range and pick off the ads one by one if you don't have the Hunter, but if you do, just smoke bomb and go right past them all. Once you get into this room, you can start in the hallway just to get some ad control. Then you can push up to these two obstacles where you can safely hide behind cover while you keep taking out a few more barriers. Now, over here to the right-hand side is a pretty good spot once the new ads start spawning in because you get a little bit closer. You can also chain your wells here. This is a great spot for that. When you chain your wells, especially if you have Phoenix Protocol on, it not only does it provide a ton of support for you and your team, but you and the Warlock are just going to be feeding each other supers back to back through this entire encounter. And because we had two Warlocks, we went ahead and pushed up to this high pillar here just so we could chain them there and get a little bit closer for a little bit more damage. Now, the rest of this encounter is going to be up there at that other high pillar, so you can either stay back here or push up to the front of the stairs. A couple tips I have for this room specifically is to always make sure you're using your super because there's a ton of ads that just need to get burned down fairly quickly. And also use your heavy too, because at the beginning of the room, you're going to see a heavy ammo box. So once everybody's through with their heavy, go ahead and pop that for everybody so everybody can re-up on their heavy. But before you pop that, make sure that everybody's on the same page. For my example, we're an LFG group. I typically use that for almost every activity that I do. But just be sure to communicate before you pick up anything. Communication really is key for any of these activities, whether you have a fire team or whether you're on LFG. This room is fairly easy. Just make sure to communicate which champions you're taking down because there's several of them. So once you get maybe the main ads down, go ahead and start calling out what champions we're taking down. As for positioning in this room, we stayed in the hallway for the most part in the beginning, and once we got a few of the champions down, we pushed up kind of just whenever we felt comfortable. Once you made it this far, you're going to see two Unstoppable Ogres here on this bridge. Again, this is fairly simple. Just stay up top here and start shooting down below. Make sure you're stunning and focusing one at a time just so it makes it easier on everybody and you conserve ammo. And once you got the ogres down, go ahead and drop down to the bridge below, and then you could jump down this hole and onto a platform. That's probably one of the better spots to go ahead and begin this encounter. There's also a heavy ammo box down here that you guys can use. As for positioning for this part, we went ahead and just stayed on this platform because we have a nice barrier here in front of us, and the main priority in this part is to take down the Acolyte doing the battle song, because you are unable to use your grenades, supers, and also these shriekers just won't leave you alone. So we went ahead and took the shriekers out just because they were troublesome here, and just stayed back at range to finish off the first part of this room. Once you reach this part, you're going to see the Unstoppable Ogre at the end of the bridge. Just kind of hang back and take him out. It's pretty easy here. This part seems harmless, but once you push up to the middle of this next room, you're going to have two barrier champions that spawn up. Go ahead and drop a well. One of them is going to stay in that room with you. The other one's going to try to get out and go towards the other encounter. But it's probably a better idea. If you can finish him here, go ahead and do that just to make it easier on you. And once you get to this part, go ahead and kind of hang back and start knocking some of these barrier champions down. Admittedly, this part was a little sloppy for us. We didn't have good coordination. As you can see, we had a tether go out, and I mean, the servitor regened his health, I think 2 or 3 times, just because everybody was kind of frantic and focused on other things. But this part is not hard. Just make sure you're behind cover because there's a lot going on in this encounter. I recommend taking down the barrier champs first and work towards the servitor and then the witches. Once you get to this part, disregard the left side. There's a little bit too much going on for it to be worth it. So go ahead and take a right, go over here, start knocking down the ads and grab your relic. Once you've gotten the relic, head back to the center and start shooting the remaining symbols on the door. You can also grab another relic up top there above where you came in. It's worth noting that it only takes 2 of these relics to open the door, so if you tap the trigger or tap the fire button here, it actually preserves more of your ammunition. You're able to use more of the relic to open the door versus having to go back and get the third one like we did here. Now, this room is admittedly the hardest part of this Grandmaster Nightfall. What you want to do if you're a well warlock, go ahead and head under these stairs to the right here and pop a well and have somebody on your fire team start the encounter, because you'll get your super back immediately, so you're able just to have an extra well before you begin the encounter. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Just go ahead and start damaging the boss and take control of the ads. It's worth noting here that sometimes the wizards will push under the stairs. There's really not a good spot in this boss room to do this encounter other than right here. The boss typically will not hit you with its abilities, so really the only part that's going to take you out is the ads if you don't have any control over them. Once the boss reaches half health, you're going to have captains that spawn that drop these relics. You're going to want to deposit these in the center of the room. Void Hunters are absolutely the best for this because they can go stealth and deposit the orbs. It's worth noting that each time you deposit an orb, it's going to spawn a new wave of ads. So if you're struggling here, make sure you don't overwhelm yourself and take control of these ads and do orbs one at a time. We really didn't have any issues with this because we had a couple wells that we were rotating back and forth, and also we had the hunter to deposit the orbs. But if you get overwhelmed, just like I said, take out the ads one at a time and move on. Once you've deposited all 5 relics in the center of the room, you're able to damage the boss again. This is a rinse and repeat part of the beginning. Remember just to maintain ad control and then finish off the boss and collect your loot. If you guys have any recommended strats for this Grandmaster, please let me know down in the comments below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.